Two people already in custody over the death of a 1-year-old at a Bronx daycare are now facing federal charges. Gray Mendez, the daycare owner, and Carlisto Acevedo Brito were charged with narcotics possession with intent to distribute resulting in death and conspiracy to distribute narcotics resulting in death in connection with the overdose of 4 children under the age of 3, one of whom died, at the daycare. Police are still searching for Mendez's husband for questioning. They say he was caught on video fleeing the scene amid the deadly fentanyl exposure on Friday. First responders were summoned on Friday afternoon to Divino Nino Daycare on 2707 Morris Avenue for reports of cardiac arrest. Nicholas Domenici, 1, died after police say he was exposed to fentanyl that was in the daycare. Acevedo Brito, 41, and Mendez, 36, were dealt 11 charges including murder, manslaughter, and assault. Officials say Brito is a tenant who was renting a room from Mendez and is the cousin of Mendez's husband. The defendants tried to cover up the overdoses of the babies, prosecutors said Tuesday. Investigators discovered video of someone carrying 2 full shopping bags out of the daycare, leaving the children suffering the effects inside and in desperate need of help. Detectives have learned that Mendez talked to her husband several times before calling 911. In the immediate aftermath of Friday afternoon's tragedy. A kilogram of fentanyl was stored on top of children's playmats used for napping at the daycare, according to the criminal complaint. The defendants' alleged conduct that led to those poisonings is unconscionable, it's inexcusable, and it's the reason that they are now in federal custody, said U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. Since July, the 2 people charged conspired to distribute fentanyl at the daycare where they maintained large quantities of fentanyl, despite the daily presence of children, including infants, the complaint said.
Officials say the defendants also kept at the daycare kilo presses, which are designed for the recompression of drugs in powder form commonly used by narcotics traffickers at mills or other locations where drugs are broken down, combined with fillers or other narcotics, and portioned for sale. As a consequence of the defendant's drug conspiracy, on or about September 15, 2023, at the daycare, 4 children, who were all under 3 years of age, appeared to have experienced the effects of poisoning from exposure to fentanyl. 3 of the children were hospitalized with serious injuries. The 4th child, a 1-year-old boy, has died, the complaint said. Mendez called 911 at 2:40 p.m. to report children in her care were unresponsive. Domenici was pronounced dead at the hospital, where the others, who range in age from 8 months to 2 years, were given Narcan. An analysis of urine from one of the victims confirmed the presence of fentanyl in the child's body. The DEA's Frank Tarantino said fentanyl now represents the most urgent threat the nation faces. Fentanyl is exquisitely dangerous, New York City Health Commissioner Ashwin Vasan said. I use the word exquisitely because I don't have another word to describe how dangerous this drug is. An emotional Mayor Eric Adams expressed outrage at the crime on Monday. This is total madness that we lost a child to this dangerous substance. Adams said. And we almost lost 4 children to this dangerous substance. There needs to be a full national assault on this drug entering our city. Prosecutors said Mendez participated in the reckless, depraved act by renting Brito the room in the daycare. Mendez's attorney said his client was unaware drugs were being stored in her daycare by her husband's cousin, who she was renting a room for $200 a week.
Her only crime was renting her room to someone who had a kilo, attorney Andres Aranda said. There is no evidence that she did anything but care properly for these children. The father of one of the 2-year-old boys said it is a miracle that his son Jaziel Lino survived the fentanyl exposure and it was only his son's 4th day at the daycare. He is now back at home, Lino's father said. Now looking back, he finds it suspicious that there were 3 men standing outside of the daycare on that Thursday and that Friday. However, O'Neal Feliz, Domenici's father, is mourning and processing how he lost his son at a place he assumed was safe. I love him, I miss him. I want him back, but there's nothing that will give me back my son. When I came home from work and walked through the door, he'd say, "Daddy, Daddy," said O'Neal Feliz. My wife was on her way to the daycare. She was going to pick him up early. Shortly before she arrives, she receives the call and also sees the ambulance. The daycare, for children between 6 weeks and 12 years old, recently opened in January and just passed a surprise visit from city inspectors last week with no violations found. When asked if the circumstances that led up to the incident fell through the cracks, Adams insisted that the city did its job and that inspections, including the surprise visit and background checks, were performed. Who did not do their job are the people who were there to protect the children, Adams said. Part of this relationship is based on trust, that those who are taking care of our children are going to do it in a safe manner. They broke that trust. After the children were removed from the daycare, the fire department tested the air for environmental hazards and found no evidence of carbon monoxide. Officials then began to suspect opioid exposure and executed a search warrant to search the rooms, cabinets, and other spaces where a drug packaging device was found.